Richard Rohr says that our life is not about making a name for ourselves, but instead our life is about uncovering the name we already have. In other words, we will become what we already are. Episode 32.
Welcome to the show.
Well, welcome. My name's Will Sinclair, and you're listening to The Real Truth About You. This is a show where we help you to live a life of abundance by discovering the real you and living that to the full. Okay, I think I mentioned my name's Will Sinclair and I'm your host for today. In today's episode, as we uncover a little bit different format, we tried a different format last week, and we're trying to add a little bit more entertainment value to this, so it's not just a whole bunch of serious things, you know. So anyway, I have a story for you, and when we went to talk to some teachers and stuff, and I have a bit of a message about awareness. I have a tip about knife blocks, and hey, I have a recipe for an absolutely awesome Caesar salad. So if you like Caesar salad, listen to the end here. You'll also be able to download it from our website at therealtruthaboutyou.com. Anyway, I want to tell you a story about a ship. And this ship is caught in a fog on the ocean. And usually in the old, today's a little bit different, but similar. But in the older days, they used to sound a foghorn at regular intervals, like, "Mah," and you'd hear this foghorn go off, and they would have this rotating light, and the light would shine as much as it could through the fog. So if they ever saw another ship coming towards them, because you couldn't see in this dense fog, they would be able to see this ship and then contact the ship. And so this big battle cruiser, this battleship was going through the fog, and it's caught in the ocean here, and it's got its foghorn going and the light going, and in the distance it hears another foghorn, and it sees another light. So that to them is they've identified another ship, and now it's time to contact that ship. And so the commander gets on the, whatever you call him, of the Navy, he gets on the radio, and he radios, he says, "Attention, other ship." He says, "We're the HMS," or whatever they are, that big battleship. And he says, "We've identified you. Please alter your course 30 degrees to port." And the other voice comes back and says, "No, please alter your course by 30 degrees to port." And this captain, this commander of the Navy, got really upset. He says, "No." He says, "We are a battle cruiser." He says, "You alter your course 30 degrees to port." And the voice comes back and says, "No, I'm sorry. You need to alter your course 30 degrees to port." And so this battle goes on between the two of them, this ego battle almost with this commander. And finally the commander says, "I am a commander of a huge battleship, and we lead the Navy into battles, and I've been fighting battles before you were born, son. Move, alter your course 30 degrees to port." And the voice comes back and says, "I am the keeper of a lighthouse. Please alter your course 30 degrees to port." And the captain shifted his course 30 degrees to port. And the point of this story is a little bit about pride. And it's something I had to really address and drop. And I'm the kind of person who, at last podcast, I was talking to you a little bit about how I have, one of the fears I have is not being accepted. A lack of approval or acceptance, and that's one of the things I've been working on in my journey. And this past week, I've been dealing with so much ego in my life and discovering what ego is in my life. But anyway, the point of the story is in this journey. Last week my wife and I were going to speak to a couple of schools. It was teacher retreat day, basically. And so those two schools, and they were having retreats for the teachers. So we were speaking at one school to the teachers in the morning. The kids had the day off. And we're speaking to another group in the afternoon. And usually I'm the kind of person who I need to have everything written down, itemized agendas. I need to know what time we're getting there, what time we're starting, how long this little part will take, what I'm going to say there, and what we're going to say there, an activity that we're going to do, and all that kind of stuff. And bear in mind, I'm also the kind of person, my personality type is, and you're going to laugh at this, or you're going to go, okay, or you're going to say, oh, I get it. I'm the kind of person that if we were going to the airport, my wife and I would have 5 copies of the boarding pass printed off for each one of us. And I would have 2 that I would keep on me, and 3 I would keep in other locations for safety, just in case I lose them. And we would get to the airport like that. And my wife is kind of we'd get to the airport and she'd say, hey, do we have our flight tickets? Well, she's not that bad, but it's kind of, it shows you the difference in personality. And as we're planning for these retreats coming up, it was last Friday. And as we were planning for these retreats coming up, I was getting this distinct message from God, from my divine, that I wasn't to plan anything. And I was like, what? What do you mean don't plan anything? And it wasn't just me blindly following a message. It was every time we tried to plan, I would say to my wife, we need to get together and plan what we're going to say and what we're going to do and what it's all about. And we'd get together and nothing would work out. Or we'd get together later in the evening and I'd be too tired. I just couldn't get it together. And anyway, it was the day before, and I was meeting with my spiritual director, who I meet with every month. And if you don't have a spiritual director or somebody who mentors you spiritually, somebody who's been trained to mentor you spiritually, I would get somebody, because it's amazing how you can fool yourself into thinking certain things, and they really help you along the journey. But anyway, I went to my spiritual director and I told her this, and she says, you mean you're not planning anything? I says, nope. She says, so you're just going to go and show up? And I says, yep. And do you know what you're going to say? Nope. Well, do you know your theme? Yep. But you don't know what you're going to say? Nope. Okay. And then we went on with my meeting with her. But anyway, the next day we get there, and I'm a little nervous, right? Always nervous to start. But yet I feel something, right? And I wrote in my journal, it just seems like God wants me to go there and open my mouth, right? And we were going to talk about reaching God within, right? Basically about that, and how we've always, in our culture anyway, in Canada, in our Western culture, and I grew up in the UK, I've always seen God as a distant God. And it was to kind of dispel that notion of the distant God and find the God within. And I've talked about that in a different podcast, where I've talked about you have everything that you need to succeed in life. And I'm talking about in your journey. But I got there and I just opened my mouth. And I started to talk. I told a few jokes and that kind of stuff to lighten the mood. And then we got talking, and it just seemed like a message would come. And then it would get to a point where I didn't know what to say next. And then so I stopped, and it says, I think my wife's going to speak next. And she would get up and she would speak. And then she would get to a point where she was done. And then I would get up and I would speak. And it kind of went like that, and we did a little bit of a meditation with them at the end. And I just felt so much the power of God in that. I could just feel this grace, this energy that was in the room that was just, and some people were coming up and saying, and I'm not saying everybody gets it, right? And I'm not saying everybody gets something out of it. And I'm not saying that we were the most dynamic people you could ever get. But some people were coming up and said, holy, when you said that, and they would mention what it was, in my life, I've been blah, blah, blah. And they would tell me the story. And this, what I said, just confirmed something about their journey, or maybe touched the heart of somebody else. My wife shared about, she's on a healthy eating regime now. She's like ready, and she's tried different ones before, but this one seems to be really, she just seems to be ready in her life for it. And we were both overweight and stuff. And anyway, she was talking about her own self-worth and how she tied her self-worth into her weight. And there was friends coming to visit where we live, and it was really good friends, or friends that meant something to her, right? And she hadn't connected with them for a while, but still, the last time they really saw her was when she was like 130 pounds, so to speak, and in her 20s, and now she's in her 50s. And she told me at that time before they came that she was really concerned about the whole thing and what they would think about her, and she burst out crying. And so anyway, she just took a drink of water. I don't know if you could hear that, but anyway, she shared about how God moved through those tears, and she was just at that point where she became aware of that, and God did something with that and healed her of that. And anyway, so what I learned is that you don't always, sometimes you do, right, if God leads you to, but you don't always have to prepare. And it depends what your topic. I'm not talking about this, it's your job, like you're a teacher or something like that, and just go and blindly teach whatever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when you're called to share about your life, or you're called to share your testimony about life, or your insights into life. And you build those up as you go along, and they're all in you. If you've been reading or listening or even following this podcast and some things have really resonated with you, then don't be afraid if you're asked to go and share something. Because really, I'm not an expert, but I am an expert at one thing. I'm an expert at my own life. I know my life, and I'm able to share things about my life. And my wife was the same. And so your life is a topic you know a lot about. And if you're on this journey, you have something to share. Even if you're starting out on this journey and you've learned two things, or become aware of two things in your life, that's two things that somebody else doesn't know, that hasn't started the journey yet, or is just about to embark on this journey, or somebody who is seeking. So if you ever get called, God does what God does. And if you're called to share about God in your life, or you're called to share about the divine energy that flows through you, or your journey to where you are, whether you even believe in a God or not, you're an expert at who you are, and you can share that. And I'm not saying you have to do that, and I'm not saying if you don't do it, then bad on you. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm just saying that you probably know more than you realize. And when you're called, when you feel like you're called to do something, even though you might be a little scared, go do it. Go try it. And one of the things that creates in you is a vulnerability. Like you become vulnerable to the people you share to, right? And that vulnerability is something that helps you in your walk. It either helps you see that you are more than what you believe you are, or it makes you feel like you're less. And if you feel like you're less, that is an awareness that you can work with. That is an awareness that you can work with, right? So anyway, God does what God does, and God can work through you despite anything. I was praying with my we have a friend, and she's really big into meditation. She's not a Christian, but she's very much into God and divine energy and universe and all that kind of stuff, and which is awesome because it really helped me open up my walk with God in ways that I've never experienced before. But we were cleaning up from a charity event that we belong to, one of the same service clubs, and we were cleaning up from a charity event, and I just felt that we were meant to pray with her, my wife and I, so we did. And then my wife finished praying and went doing something else, and I was still had my hands on her shoulders, and she was sitting down. And the funny thing is, after we finished, she says, "Wow, holy, did I feel that energy? Oh gosh, it just permeated through my body. I just feel so awesome." And she says, "I was just so grateful that you had gotten to a position where you could just clear your mind, Will. You could just clear your mind and allow that energy to channel through you to me." But you want to know the funny reality of the whole thing is? The funny reality is that I was standing and she was sitting. I had my hands on her shoulder, and I kept moving my hands from one place to the other because I felt absolutely nothing. Not a thing, nada, nothing, nil. Didn't feel a thing. And what I was doing was I was standing there going, well, this isn't working. And I would move to another position. I'd move my hands a little bit, and I'd go, maybe. Oh, no, nothing. Boy, I'm not getting anything. Gosh, I don't seem to think anything's working at all. And in the meantime, she's getting zapped with all this grace and energy. So I'm saying God does what God does despite anything, right? God doesn't want your ability. God wants your availability. And that even comes to you on your journey. He doesn't care about your ability to go on the journey. All he wants is your availability. And I keep saying God is a he, and that's just because it's the language I've grown up with. And if you see God differently as a she or whatever, it doesn't matter to me. But that's the language I grew up in. But it was just a funny thing. That's when I realized, or was reinforced to me, that God does what God does. And so when I was going to speak to these teachers, and I didn't have a clue what I was really going to say, the same way as I come to this microphone of the podcast to talk to you, and I don't really know what I'm going to say. I have some notes, but they're just bullet points, and I don't always know what I'm going to say, but I open my mouth, and God does what God does, right? In my humanness, I might fumble over words. I might not get the right thing. But God does what God does. And if you're meant to resonate with something I say, if God just touches you somehow through just listening to the podcast, then God does what God does. It's because we both showed up, right? But regardless, God does what God does. So anyway, I want to move on to, hey, I got a tip. Oh, hold on a second. Let me just play some... Oh yeah, here's I got a real tip, a kitchen tip. Okay, so here we go. Okay, this is a tip about knife blocks. You know how where that wooden block where you put all your sharp knives? And somebody said to me something once, just, you know what? Why don't you should turn your knives upside down? I mean, I said, what are you talking about? He says, turn your knives upside down so the sharp end is facing up when you put it in the block. So the blunt end is the part that touches the wood. And I thought, whoa, that makes a lot of sense. And so we started doing that probably about 6 months ago. And it's true, the knives stay sharper. So all you have to do is take your knife and turn it upside down and put it back in the block so that the sharp side is facing upwards. It's a really cool thing. And we're transitioning out of this part. Okay, so I'm going to read to you something I wrote to my cousin, and it's about awareness, and I just felt I was meant to share it with her, and I don't know if I was or not, but what I found was I read it to my wife, and she says, you should podcast this. And I thought, okay, well, I'll try it. I don't usually read as I podcast, but I'm gonna read this to you, and I'm gonna try and speak it as if I'm not reading it. Okay? And it's about the beginning of your journey. If you're just starting out, or even if you're a ways into it, and sometimes you need a bit of a reminder. Okay? So it is, I am just going to, where we go. So it's called awareness. The beginning of your journey will always start with awareness. Awareness of whatever. A lack, a desire for more, issues of fear, judgment, guilt, or just about anything under the sun. This is you and God making a connection. As soon as you become aware and feel the need to change your ego, which is responsible for keeping you moving forward, for getting up in the morning and getting dressed, etc. Your ego will kick in and try to make sense out of everything, especially the awareness you've just come into. The problem, if you can call it that, is that the ego will always bring you back to yourself and not to God, where true transformation takes place. The ego will also try to keep you on the surface of your life. Staying on the surface will keep you in the loop, or that constant cycle of what's causing issues in your life. Maybe it's relationships. You always seem to pick the wrong person. Or friends just never seem to attach to you. And remember, it's not about them. It's about you. And I don't mean that in a guilty, bad way. But that's a cycle that keeps going in your life. For true transformation in your life, you need God. That you already know. But what God wants you to know is that you must not look for Him, and I say Him because that's my language. You must not look for Him in the externals of your life. There are so many things in the Christian culture that we've said and repeated so much that we've forgotten or become numb to or even misinterpreted. And it doesn't matter what culture you come from. I come from a Christian Catholic culture, so that's what I'm sharing from. We tell our children that God is in their heart. We say, "Who's in your heart?" God's in your heart. Yet we have forgotten the reality of that. God is already in you. There is nothing you can do to change that. You did not call God into existence in you. God was, has been, and always will be there. It's a fact. You cannot call upon God to come. God is already here. What changes is your awareness of that presence. Jesus came to earth to show us that we were missing the point. Not that we'd fallen to sin, but we were looking for God as an external only God and failing to see God already within us. That is why he said, talking about his miracles and all the things that he did to heal and cure people, he said in the Christian Bible, he said, "You will do even greater than this." The journey of discovering your true self, which is ultimately the discovery of God within you already, begins with the journey down into the depths of our being. Richard Rohr, a contemplative Catholic Christian Franciscan priest, calls it the journey of falling upward. The human ego has done a very successful job of trying to cover up what is within. It wants the power, and we must learn the process of seeing beyond our ego and begin uncovering what we have covered up over life. Richard Rohr says that our life is not about making a name for ourselves, but instead our life is about uncovering the name we already have. We will become what we already are. When we are in God, we are in a life of love. When we are in our ego, we will feel the pain of hurt inflicted by others onto us. When we are in God, we are in a life of love. When we are in our ego, we will feel the pain of hurt inflicted by others onto us. The best way I've experienced of beginning the journey inward to God is through meditation, also sometimes called contemplation. If you have never done this before, sit in a quiet place. Even if it's only for 5 minutes to start with. Maybe listen to some soft, soothing, or inspirational music. Relax your body. Offer the moment to God. Then just sit and listen to yourself breathing. Breathe in deep and slow, and breathe out. And listen to that. When your mind kicks in, and if you begin thinking of things, just acknowledge that you're thinking, then come back to listening to yourself breathe, taking slow, deep breaths. That's all your focus is on. Not even thinking about God. Just breathing and listening as you relax, sitting, listening to your breath, listening to yourself breathe trains you to always come back to the moment, to the now, where God can touch and speak. It is though we are slowing down our busy and linear life to connect with a timeless God. It is as though we are slowing down our busy and linear life to connect with a timeless God. Do not become concerned about results. The past is already gone, and there is no future. It simply doesn't exist, other than what is perceived in your mind. The past can cause stress, and thoughts of the future can cause anxiety. There is only the now, the present moment. And that's where we discover God as God truly is. As you progress in meditation, contemplation, you may encounter images of you and God, but for now, just focus on breathing and listening. Feel the air on your skin. Feel the surface you're sitting on without moving. Relax each muscle. And just sit in the stillness of life. The term namaste in essence means God in me, acknowledge and bows to God in you. So as we move on to the next section, namaste. Well, didn't expect that to turn into meditation time. If it did, great for you. If it did something for you, that's awesome. Maybe let me know. support@therealtruthaboutyou.com, or just go to our website, therealtruthaboutyou.com, and go to the contact form. Anyway, moving on now. And I have an absolutely awesome Caesar salad recipe for you. So we're just going to strut on down to the kitchen. This is my strutting music. Strutting down the hallway, heading down to the kitchen. And here we are. We have a recipe for Caesar salad. Now, this Caesar salad recipe, I don't want it to be misconstrued. I'm telling you to die for it, but this Caesar salad recipe is to die for. My wife, we used to go to this potluck, where everybody brings different dishes and stuff, and we put them all in the center and share them in common. And anyway, so we would go to this potluck supper, and this guy used to bring this deadly Caesar salad. It was like, oh, to die for, basically. And I'm not telling you to die for this, but, just a matter of speech. Anyway, I'm going to give you the recipe for this. He would not give us the recipe. It was like a family secret that he was like, whenever they went everybody says, Gary, bring your Caesar salad, please. Well, I guarantee you, he finally gave up the recipe. It took a lot of effort and a lot of time and a lot of niggling at him, but he finally gave it up. And the recipe is on the website, so you don't have to worry about remembering, especially writing down the recipe if you're driving or you're doing something. But if you want it right now, or you're not at a spot where you could get to the internet, or you're listening to this offline, however, I'm going to give you the recipe, and this is just dynamite. I mean, you will make this, and everybody will want you to come to their potlucks. Okay, so there's two sets of ingredients, the salad itself and then the dressing. So, and then some directions. So my wife gave this to me because she's the one that actually makes it, and I'm going to, as a guy, try and give it to you. And so here's the dressing ingredients. You can either use grapeseed oil, which is what my wife uses, or you can use olive oil. Okay, so some kind of oil like that, grapeseed oil or olive oil. Now, the amount, I'm not sure. You'll kind of guess whatever you mix in a little bit. But anyway, that's a guy ingredient. Anyway, here's the rest of the stuff. So half a cup of mayonnaise, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 large garlic clove, 1 raw egg, 6 drops of Worcestershire sauce, and I don't know if you can get Worcestershire sauce where you are, but 6 drops of Worcestershire sauce, and then 2 to 3 teaspoons of lemon juice, according to your taste, if you like lemon juice or not. So that's grapeseed oil or olive oil, half a cup of mayo, half a teaspoon of salt, 1 large garlic clove, 1 raw egg, 6 drops of Worcestershire sauce, and 2 to 3 teaspoons of lemon juice, according to taste. And the other stuff, the other part of the recipe, of course, is 2 big heads of romaine lettuce. And this makes a nice size for a big family. It's a nice size to take to a potluck. 2 big heads of romaine lettuce. Croutons as you choose. You can pick any kind of croutons. My wife likes those big kind of bread croutons. Some people like the actual Caesar croutons, or whatever kind you want. It can be any kind of flavor you want. And then Parmesan grated cheese. And you can either buy that Parmesan grated cheese, or cheese grated, I guess. Parmesan cheese that you're going to grate. And you can either grate it yourself and pour over the salad, or you could buy the cheese already in a bag, already grated. Anyway, directions. Here's the directions. Blend the dressing ingredients in a blender until a creamy texture is achieved. And it's a really like creamy, mucousy type of texture to it. And it's really, really good. So blend it until you get this creamy texture. Cut up the romaine lettuce and place in a bowl. And don't make the lettuce too big. Add the croutons and the Parmesan cheese and some grated Parmesan cheese and the blended dressing mix. So that's all the olive oil and the mayo and the salt and the garlic clove, egg, all that kind of stuff, right? And toss the lettuce with the dressing, like together, and you can use a couple of spoons or whatever, with the dressing and the ingredients until the lettuce is completely covered. Right, so toss the lettuce and the dressing and ingredients until the lettuce is completely covered. Sprinkle more, once you've got it all covered up and it's sitting in the bowl, then sprinkle more Parmesan cheese on the top of the salad before serving. And one of the big things about this is do not mix it up before you get to the event, or before if your guests haven't come or nobody's come yet. Like, you have to do it right before you serve it, because if you do it beforehand, or you mix it up at home and then you take it to the event, your lettuce will be really soggy and it'll be really watery at the bottom. So it's just not the same. Okay, so it has to be freshly done. So when you get to the location or the event, then mix it up as soon as they're ready to start eating. Okay? Everyone's going to like ask you and beg you for this recipe, and it's going to become your family secret. So we'll keep it a secret, okay? We won't tell anybody. Right? So you're going to get asked, they're going to say, hey, come on, bring your Caesar salad. Okay, so there's a really cool thing for you there, right? So Caesar salad to die for. It will be on our website, and you can download it. I think it'll be a PDF or something like that, and it'll be under this episode 32, and you'll be able to access it that way. I might put it in, I think I got a resources section. It shows you how great at upkeeping the website I have. But anyway, The Real Truth About You, episode 32, and just do a search for that. Okay. There's a couple of things I've been looking at doing, I feel led to do. And one is, I just want to tell you about in advance because I'm thinking about it, is to create a digital magazine that will probably come out every month. And it'll be about living, it'll be about being lighter and brighter and living your life abundantly. And it'll be a lot of things from the podcast and maybe some extra things. So I just want to tell you about that. That may be coming out, and I will introduce you to it when it comes out. And I'm also going to start doing, it's probably going to be like a 1 minute gratitude video on YouTube. I'm going to start doing some kind of YouTube videos, and I'm going to keep them really short. They might be 5 minutes, 3 minutes, but I'm going to aim for 1 minute if I can. I don't know if I can keep under a minute, but I'm going to try. Okay? All right, I have a piece of old music. Last week I played some old music for you, and I'm going to try this one. And if you're a Christian, like I come from a Christian background, that's why I bring up a lot of Christian things, and it's what I'm most comfortable talking about. But I'm really discovering new things about my God that I've never become aware of before. And so, but I tend to use a lot of Christian language. I'm not saying that you have to be a Christian, okay? But this is an oldie recording. It's called Call My Jesus' Name. So here we go.
I don't worry, I don't pray, I'm not easy to forget. It's a blessing just to call my Savior's name. If it's morning, noon, or night, I can serve Him right. It's a blessing just to call my Savior's name. It's a blessing just to call my Savior's name. It makes no difference where I am, I'm not ashamed. If it's morning, noon, or night, I can serve Him right. It's a blessing just to call my Savior's name.
Well, I can just imagine them just singing that, just singing it, old Alabama song. Yeah, here we go. So anyway, I just want to thank you for listening in today. My music's cut off there. Anyway, thanks for listening in today. It's been so awesome to have you. I've been really appreciative of your time here, and if you can and you would like to, go to our website, therealtruthaboutyou.com, and you can download more episodes. You can do the contact form on there. And so I just want to thank you so much for tuning in today. And remember, lighter and brighter, that's where we're heading. And you are just so awesome. You guys absolutely rock. And we'll see you on the next episode.